Is the kickoff for the semester. Welcome to Stonehouse, everyone. Thank you for coming here tonight just to hang out with us, spend time with us, chill with us, and get some word in. It's the beginning of the semester, and already you can tell there are changes. Changes like me. I'm the one that's actually doing the message tonight. And changes like our leaders. Where are my leaders, like Sheba, Albert, and Blake? They're not here. And it's so weird, like, not to have my leaders here. And they put me, Alvin, and Brianna in charge. Like Shaba's in Australia, Albert's in Australia, Blake is, like, doing another gig, and it's just crazy. Like, being a part of this team for 3 years, like 3 years ago, I would have never seen myself being able to have the faculty or the capacity to speak. But now I'm here, and I'm going to be speaking for like 30 minutes-ish, and it's a different experience to speak at Stonehouse. It's thrilling, yet I'm nervous, and I'm really excited at the same time to share with you guys what's been going on with me during this summer semester as the Stonehouse leadership team. We were studying, and we were trying to think of a topic to speak over the semester. And so here I am speaking, and I'm hoping that what I'm going to say and how I speak my message will be up to par and maintain the caliber that Blake and Sheba have been speaking and doing so well for this past couple of years here at Stonehouse. I'm breathing so hard. So this is, along with my breathing, I'm quaking in my boots, nervous as can be. And I'm going to try my best to deliver this message as simple as possible. But I really do wish Sheba and Albert were here. They were like my cheerleading squad. You know, they're the ones that sit in the crowd and they cheer for you, and they're the ones that say, amen, and they give you those profound, And they make the speaker sound like, they're actually saying something that's worth hearing, I wish they were there, but you know what? Alvin's here, and Brianna's here, so I'm going to need you guys to be that cheerleading squad for me, okay? Alvin, yeah, you got me, right? Okay. So, even though my original cheerleading squad is not here, I know that they've been praying for me. They know that this moment has been coming up, and they've kept me in prayer, and I believe that God is going to use me tonight. Despite my fear of speaking, and despite my fear of not being able to communicate. So there's a lot of fears existing in my life, and besides this fear of not being able to communicate to a crowd, I have another fear that I wanted to share with you guys, which you'll hear later on. The theme or title for this Stonehouse series is the basic fears and promises of God. Now, usually we don't connect those two words together, but hopefully by the time I finish speaking, my goal for you guys is be able to see and understand how promises and fears relate. Like when we hear the word promises, another word that's tied closely to promise is expectations. Thanks. When we hear about God's promises, there are expectations that are usually tied to God's promises. Like, for example, does anyone here know right off the top of their heads what Ephesians 3:20 says? I'm taking you back to Sunday school. I'm going to be that teacher that's going to have you, recite. And I wish I was literally thinking about like having a bag of candy and give it to people who if they were able to recite. But I thought that was kind of cheesy, and I'm already kind of cheesy, so it's just too much cheese. But can anybody recite it? Ephesians 3:20. Can you? Yeah. Awesome. Can we have it on the? Okay. So now and I'm going to read it again. Thanks, Nissy. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, beyond all that we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. So we read this verse, and now I have a question for you from this verse. What do you guys, if you had to describe this verse to somebody at Lee or not Lee because it's a Christian school, but at UTC or, high school or, just you meet a stranger and they see this verse and they're like, okay, what is this verse supposed to be? What are the descriptors? What are the words you use to describe a verse like this? I need some feedback from you guys at this point. What would you guys say? How would you describe this verse? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the topic of the semester. Promises. Yes, you're right. I would say that Ephesians 3:20 is a promise. The verse is a promise from who? It's from God, right? And Who is he giving this promise to? Well, he's giving it to us. That's what Paul is saying when he writes to the church. The church is us. And this promise gives us hope. And hope is good. How many of us here in this room need hope? Can I see a show of hands? Hope is good. I need hope. Hope is good. And along with hope, this promise that we see that's on the screen, it gives a sense of expectations. Expectations that God will do exceedingly, abundantly, and more than we can ever ask in our lives. So this promise is tied with expectations. Anyone here have expectations from God? Can I see a show of hands? I do. I have certain expectations from God. I actually have a list of expectations from God, and you're going to hear this list later on. And I'm going to hate sharing that list. But I want to spend a little bit more time talking about fears. The fears of life. Like, not necessarily the fears of animals, like, I'm afraid of spiders, or like the fears of like roller coasters, not fears like that, but more unsettling fears. Fears that I find interesting, like the fear of aging or the fear of dying. It makes you, I don't necessarily have that fear, but I'm fascinated by that fear because, it makes you wonder, it really makes you wonder what your life is going to look like once you have gray hair, Have you ever thought about that? Do you ever wonder what you're going to look like when you hit 70? My hair is luscious right now. Is it going to be luscious when I turn 70? Or is it even going to be there? Some of us are balding even right now as we're aging. Are we going to have wrinkles upon wrinkles like we see a lot of 70-year-olds have? And you guys probably could relate to this one. I know Vigil can. Are you gonna have that smell at age 70? That old people smell that you usually find when you go to retirement homes? I don't know. I think about these things, loss of hair, wrinkles, and smelling. Like it or not, it's called getting old. And that's a real fear for some people. Getting old is not something that's going to be easy for them. It'll be easy for me because I've come to this point in my life, guys, where I accepted the fact that I'm probably not going to age gracefully. But if I do, I heard that visual. But if I do, I hope I look something like Robert De Niro. He's a good-looking 70-year-old, What was that movie that he came out with a couple years ago? The Apprentice or something? No, The Intern. It was a good movie. Okay, so if that's not your fear, let's explore more different types of fears. Some people have the fear of not being in the right romantic relationship. That's a one. And that fear can actually make things really awkward real quick. Maybe you've been the victim, or you've had a friend who's been a victim of the dreaded statement, I just feel like God is leading me to break up with you. I'm not trying to make gender stereotypes here, but shots fired. But seriously, we all have fears, okay? And some may seem more ridiculous than others. Some people that I know don't donate blood because they think that the needle is too big and that if it goes into their vein, the blood is going to come out and they're going to die of giving blood. It's ridiculous. Some people are afraid to go to the circus because they think clowns are psychotic killers. By the way, what's up with the news right now? With all these people dressing up as clowns and scaring people? Have you guys seen that? So strange. Maybe that's a legitimate fear now. I don't know. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that as ridiculous as fears are, it's important to remember that fears are very real to the person who has them. So this whole time, I've been picking on people and talking about other people's fears, and I think it's about time I talk about my fear. Me? Who, me? I have the fear of failure. That's a real fear of mine, and I'm serious. The fear of failure is really big for me. I hate, and this is what the fear of failure looks like to me. I hate when the Chacko, the idealistic Chacko that's in my head, doesn't compare or match up to the Chacko that's standing here before you. I want to be, the idealistic Chacko is Mr. Perfect that can do everything. Mr. I can do everything and do it perfectly, but in reality, I do a lot of things. I'm involved in music. I play sports. I do a lot of things, but I'm kind of bad at doing them. And that makes me feel like a failure. And being raised as a Christian, you know that you're supposed to be more than conquerors, right? Through him who loves us, and that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of courage. And we read verses like this, and so we begin to form expectations. Expectations like we're supposed to conquer anything, and that our spirits should be always of courage. We really do begin to form expectations like this, especially when fear is attacking us. We want God's promises like a sword and shield to combat against our fears. And what I'm trying to say is our expectations that God will deliver his promise to us, according to our expectations. We want God's promises to look that way, but I don't think it does. And sometimes I think we get very frustrated when what we want is not what we get. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. So on most nights, I get a relatively good amount of sleep. I enjoy a nice, comfy bed with comfortable, fluffy pillows. And I sleep pretty well when I have those conditions. But one night, I went to sleep on a full stomach because I loaded myself with delicious chicken pasta that one of our church members, Aaron Daniel, made for us at a birthday party a couple of weeks ago. Now, if you guys know Aaron Daniel, especially the ones that go to our church, you know that guy can cook. And his food is literally food for the soul. It's so good, I feel like my soul could fly. I get pretty delirious about food. That's how good his food was. So that night after I had it, I was totally in a food coma state. And so I decided to sleep early and rest up because I knew I had work early in the morning that next day. And it kind of made sense to go to sleep at that point because my tummy was full and I was sleepy and I thought I was going to get a glorious night's rest. But around 2 or 3 in the morning, I found myself wide awake. And I was unable to sleep because something that woke me up actually kept me up throughout that night. And I can still remember everything, though. The details of that night were clear in my head, so allow me to describe that to you. So I was lying in my bed, and I looked around in the room while it was dark, and while I stared at the clock that was sitting on my desk, perfectly placed right next to my rotating nightlight, it was right there. And I stared at the blue lights emanating from the digital clock. I could see the movement of the digits going from 2:03 to 2:04 a.m. And just the very fact that I saw it move made me realize something that's blatantly obvious. Time is moving. Life is happening. Time is not idle. It never rests. And our lives actually continue. They continue while we're sleeping. I mean, that's obvious, but it's crazy, right? If you really think about it. When I was younger, I used to think that time would stop. When you're young, you used to have silly fears, or you do silly things if it's raining and you start to hear thunder, you'll go to sleep early just to avoid that. I had silly things like that in my mind. When I was young, I used to think that whenever I fell asleep, time would stop, and whenever I wake up, it would resume. It was silly. I used to scare myself. It was so silly, and I would spend time thinking about that. I used to scare myself asking the question, well, what if I go to sleep and I never wake up? And does that mean that time will stop? And it was a weird, it was weird. It was weird fears. I was a weird child, yes. But anyways, back to the story. Yeah, time is moving, okay? It was 2:03, it turns to 2:04. Time is moving, and that gets my mind moving. It starts to think, and my mind is thinking and thinking and thinking, and it doesn't stop thinking. Literally, my mind is taking laps around my bed, and one of the worst things that happens. I start to think about my fears. I start to think about the stupid things that I've done in my life. It's terrible. It's like a horror movie nightmare that happens to you while you're awake. So picture me sitting in a movie theater, and I'm really excited to see a movie. The new Avengers came out. I'm putting popcorn in my mouth. I'm sitting first row, prepared to watch an exciting movie. But to my demise, what the screen is showing is all the most painful and agonizing memories of my life, all the most embarrassing things that happened. You'll see a picture of what that looks like in a second. But at 2:04 a.m., I was recalling the most embarrassing moments of my life. But it doesn't stop there. This thinking slowly starts to become heavier and heavier thinking. I started thinking about embarrassing things, and then I started thinking about deep things. Things that make your throat clear and like kind of make you feel uncomfortable with yourself. I was kind of having like a mini midlife crisis where I was beginning to wonder about purpose and if I'm living in God's purpose and if I'm leading the life I'm supposed to be leading. And I remember thinking once 2:05 a.m. came, this is bad. Like, thinking about your life and all your past memories is a really bad thing to do at 2 a.m., especially when you wake up and you can't go back to sleep, and especially when you throw in purpose and the meaning of life into the mix, then you really can't sleep, right? And so this is what was happening in my mind pretty much. I found this on Pinterest, and I felt like it did a really good job of describing what was happening to me at 2 in the morning. Anyone here know what I'm talking about? Like, have you ever been here before? Like, if you do, you need to like talk to me after the service so we could share and compare like what our worst nightmares look like. But back to the story. So I'm sitting here thinking about this stuff, sulking in bed, and I find myself more and more troubled. And that's when it happened. The fear of failure reared its ugly head into my mind. And I have this failure, guys, this failure to live up to the expectations that I made for myself. So I told you earlier that I was going to share this expectation list, the Josh Chacko expectation list. And I hate that I have to explain it to you in order to make this message clear, because I hate talking about my failures. I hate sharing about it because it makes me vulnerable. Like, who likes to admit their fears and even worse, disclose the things that are their personal weaknesses? So what you're about to hear is a Josh Chacko expectation list. Okay, guys? So make fun of me if you want. Okay? I'm going to share it anyways. I know Vigil is definitely going to make fun of me for it. You might find that, however, you might find that some of these things might be on your own list, or at least similar to it. So these are the expectations that I used to want in my life, all right? So get a kick out of it. In the Josh Chacko expectation list, here's the first thing. I want to be athletic so that I can earn people's respect. I want to be a music prodigy so that I can earn people's respect. I want to be a star-A student that can juggle school, work, and church, and then do some more so that I can get people's respect. I want to be the funniest guy in the room, and sometimes I think I am, the guy that everyone knows and loves, yet can take seriously because they know I can get serious when I want to get serious. This is all like tied with earning respect. Probably the largest expectation on my list is that I want to be important, and I want to earn people's respect based on the things that I can achieve. So this is it, guys. I'm exposed. What you see is what you get. This is the curious case of Josh Chacko. This was the Josh Chacko expectation list. And have I ever met any of these things on my list? Hardly. The reality of life, which serves a morning slap to me every time I wake up out of bed, is that I have not met any of those things that are on the Josh Chacko expectation list. It's never going to happen. It's a dream in a far, far away land. It's a fairy tale, especially the expectation to earn people's respect through my athleticism. Like, it's okay. You could laugh, okay? I mean, some of you guys who played basketball with me before know that I'm not the most graceful moving player on the court. Like, seriously, though, like the ball can fly right past me, and it would take me 10 seconds to react to it. It's okay. You can laugh. I laugh at myself now. I had to accept a long time ago that coordination and reaction time is not exactly my forte. And those of you who play music with me, you know that I'm improving, I'm getting better, but I'm not a prodigy. Like, it takes me minutes to figure out the right chords and to get into the right rhythm. Like, I'll get to it, but I'm not like some of these music prodigies that are out there. People like Brian McKnight. If you guys don't know who he is, you need to YouTube him. That guy is incredible. People like Brian McKnight, Stevie Wonder, and Wilson Benjamin, they can hear things in like 2 seconds and immediately know what key to play in and what style to play in. And for the rest of us, for people like me, we just have to take our sweet time. Yes, Wilson, I made that comparison. I know you're hiding. So, this list, I haven't met anything that's on the Josh Chacko expectation list. And that makes me very upset. It makes me, along with upset, very afraid. I have this fear of failure, and I am a failure because I haven't met anything that's on the Josh Chacko list. No one is going to respect me because I haven't achieved anything or done anything that's earned people's respect the way I want to earn it. Does that make sense to you? Like my fear? Am I doing a good job of elaborating it? I imagine Joseph of the Bible kind of felt similar. He might have felt that way, this fear of failure, especially after his brothers sold him off to slavery and he was thrown into jail. By the way, have you guys seen this movie? Can you put up the slide? Joseph, the King of Dreams. Anybody seen it before? Oh, man. This movie, what was it, back in 1994, 1995? It's a great movie. You guys got to watch it. It's an all-time classic. Allow me to explain Joseph's story, Joseph's life. You see, Joseph, who's in the middle right there, he's a dreamer. He's a dreamer with high expectations. You could kind of say that his dream was kind of like his expectation list, the Joseph expectation list. And we'll get to I'll explain the dream part in just a bit, but I want to give you a quick profile of how the movie and probably the Bible portrays Joseph. Okay, so this is the life of Joseph. He's the youngest kid in the family, okay? And he was the youngest of the 12 brothers who probably picked on him a lot. And aside from his brothers, he always had this tension with his brothers. And according to the scripture, the scripture goes out of its way to say that Joseph was a favorite child of Jacob, of his father Jacob, and his mother Rachel. And the scriptures sort of present Joseph as like this golden child, like the kid that does everything right and gains the favor of his parents, and even God himself, it seems like. Now, personally, I think that all the attention Joseph probably got because of the dream that he had and the attention that he's getting from his parents, it probably made him a bit conceited. And the type of person that doesn't mind speaking about himself for hours and hours and hours. Maybe you guys have a friend like that in your life. You have a friend that is Joseph. They'll call you, they'll text you, they'll do anything to tell you the instant they feel like God is doing something great in their life or something inspirational to them. And I especially love it when they post it on Facebook and they put it on their Instagram feed and they have a little description. Oh, this is what God is doing in my life. I just absolutely love that, right? So, again, Joseph has a dream, and he told his dream to his brothers, and he shares his expectations with such excitement. Okay, so get ready for it, guys. This is the Joseph expectation list. We're going to read it, okay? And as you read it, you're going to begin to get a glimpse of the personality Joseph probably had at that time. Let's read Genesis 37, verse 6. Okay, so this is what he's telling to his brothers. Brothers, listen to this dream I had. We were binding bundles of grain out in the field. And when all of a sudden, my bundle, it rose and it stood upright while your bundles gathered around mine, and your bundle started bowing to it. Now, normally, I would be like, who talks like this? Like, only someone who's trying to annoy the people that they're talking to. This guy must be so full of himself. But Joseph was really serious. He meant every single word that he was telling them. He seems conceited, but we got to remember that Joseph was the youngest of his brothers. And he probably had the reputation of not being taken seriously, especially being the baby of the family. But he wanted to earn the respect of his people, of his brothers, of his parents. And he wanted to be known as a person of power and influence. And so I look at Joseph's expectation list, and although I think the guy probably thinks he's a big deal, I actually connect with him. I really do. I connect with him in terms of how similar our expectation lists are. I want respect. I want recognition from important people in my life. I want those things too. And in some ways, I feel like I've been looked down upon because of the silly things that I've done or said in the past. I feel like that still kind of follows me. So is that a really bad thing to want and desire? the expectation, all I want people to do is just respect me for the things that I achieve. Is that too much to ask for? Is that a bad expectation? I can already feel some of you judging me right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want people to literally bow down to me and see me as a bundle of grain standing upright, but I just want people to respect me and know who I am, And as I'm saying all these things, I'm not trying to be prideful. I'm just being honest with y'all. You feel me? Yo, Alvin, Bree, say amen. Yo, back me up. Come on, you guys are my cheerleading squad. You're supposed to make me feel like I know what I'm talking about. All right, but anyways, I feel like a failure because I don't get the respect the way that I want it. I haven't done anything that's on my expectation list, so why would that warrant people to give me the respect that I want? It seems like a valid question, but honestly, my life, as I said before, matches nothing like my expectation list. And I'm sure Joseph probably felt like a failure in that way too, especially after his brothers threw him into a pit. They sold him into slavery, and through a wild turn of events, he ends up being in prison, sitting behind cold iron bars. His dream was not matching his reality. And so Joseph must have been frustrated. Frustrated, like waking up at 2 a.m. frustrated. Joseph had an expectation list, which was his dream, and God's promises was failing his dream, his expectations. Yes, God's promises failed Joseph's expectation list, and no doubt, I felt like God's promises were failing mine. I still do from time to time. The fear of failure, guys, this is what I lose sleep over. I get angry at myself, and I get angry at God because I thought His promises are supposed to meet my expectations, not break or shatter them. I had expectations that God's promises were supposed to help me earn respect. How? By being an awesome athlete, being the music prodigy, being the musician, and being the dude who has it all. Not a loser that spends his hours of night just losing sleep, thinking of the things that could have been, thinking of the things that he wanted to get. God's promises was not meeting my expectation list. I thought the promises of God were supposed to meet my expectation list. Was I wrong to think that way, guys? Jesus even once said, ask and ye shall receive, right? Well, I've been asking, and I haven't been getting anything. I thought His promises are supposed to look like Ephesians 3:20, if we can put that on the screen, where God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that I can ask or think. But there I was, hardly getting anything that I wanted and expected. And so, my expectation list shaped me into a failure. By its standards, every morning that I woke up from bed, I was failing at life. I earned nobody's respect because I couldn't do anything talented or exceptional, and it was frustrating. And this frustration at 2 a.m. was swelling up, and it was growing and growing, and finally it erupted in anger, and I was angry with questions. Questions like, is God's promises trustworthy? Promises like Ephesians 3:20 or Romans 8:28. Can we have Romans 8:28 on the screen? Unless somebody can recite that. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Verses like those, they seem so pretty, and they make you feel like, that meme with the baby who has his fist clenched, and he's like, you got this. God is on your side. I thought it was supposed to make me feel that way when I read these verses, but sometimes I just wonder if they're just empty words that don't say anything. And sometimes, and this is the vulnerability part that I'm about to share, sometimes I sit and I weep when no one is around because I feel like God's promises are not meeting up to my expectation list. Life is a struggle. We know that. But my expectations list was making it worse. And things that I used to enjoy doing no longer had any meaning to me because I kept living like a failure. And I hate that I felt that way sometimes. I hate that I feel that way sometimes, even right now. And I hate that it's a struggle to worship to songs that are supposed to make me feel confident about God's promises. I struggle to worship to songs sometimes. Songs like Give Me Faith by Elevation Worship. I listen to that song sometimes and I cry to it. And it's not tears of worship, but it's tears of doubt. Because I don't know if I really believe what those words say. I don't even know if I really believe what I'm singing as I'm crying as I sing it. And so at 2 a.m. in the morning, that night was a dark night of the soul, y'all. Can you relate? And if you can, maybe you've had this question. Does God even care when we feel like we're losers? Like, does God really care that I have some sleepless nights and that I'm frustrated, feeling like a failure? These questions, they eat away at me. And let's say he does. If he does, then why doesn't he do something about it? Why did he let it happen the way that it happened? And, people try to help. They try to say things they think they're supposed to do because they're Christians. They say it because they think it's their job. And I've heard answers like, well, you don't have to worry. Just give it to God because he's in control and he's really doing something about it. But is he really, though? Like Romans 8:28, does God really work all things together for my good? Or is that something we just get used to saying? Get used to saying like a broken audio record. Because we don't know what else to say when people are showing their vulnerability, when they're sharing their fears. This is real talk right here. I couldn't handle these questions. I felt like that night, like a millstone was tied around my neck and somebody was throwing me in water and I just kept falling and falling and drowning in these questions. I couldn't handle it on my own. I had to go to someone. Otherwise, I might have done something drastic. Who knows? So I shared my sleepless night story to the Stonehouse crew. And guys, sharing something so sensitive and so vulnerable, such as my expectation list and the fact that I failed it, it was one of the hardest things I had to do in my life. But sometimes, the very things we think we don't have to do are the things we should do. And for me, I can say that I'm glad that I did it because I needed to hear something real from real people that don't sound like broken audio records. We need people that don't sound like broken audio records. I need people that can actually meet me where I'm at and come and sit with me at the bottom of my pit as I'm suffering. And they can learn and know to suffer with me and bear it with me. And help me make sense of the failure to meet my expectation list. And I'm so glad that I stepped out of my comfort zone and revealed my weaknesses to people that I knew I could trust. People that I knew who loved and cared for me. Because what somebody said to me during that Stonehouse, during that time where I was sharing my weaknesses to the crew, they said something to me that made more sense than anything possibly ever could have made sense in that time of tenderness and vulnerability. And this is what they said. What if the problem was not with God's promises meeting my expectations, but instead the problem was in the expectation list I created for myself? Now that's kind of a mouthful to say, so I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to read it, digest it, take notes, do whatever you need to do to chew this content down. What if the things I sincerely longed and expected for were not the things I necessarily needed in order to live a happy life? What if I just needed to change my expectation list? We all long for things that we don't have. I think that is the story of our lives. And it's even more shameful when we long for things that we already have. Let me give you an example of that. So this phone that I'm holding in my hand. Think of the cell phone that's resting in your hands, and you're probably using it to take notes as you listen or scroll through Instagram. Your phone can do a lot of things, right? Our phone can do so much. It's like man's best technology friend. It can text, it can Snapchat, it can record, send pictures to anyone you want to. Our phone can do a lot. But, once that new iPhone 7 comes out, or whatever phone that's on the market, and it comes to your local Best Buy or T-Mobile or Verizon or Sprint or whatever, you just have to have it. It's that new phone, right? That new phone, though. It has all the bells and whistles. You just got to have it. And suddenly, it's like what you had before is now less. And you long for something that you think can give you more. We want to get what we want, and we're willing to take the extra mile to get what we want. Even if it's crazy credit card payments that break the bank, we'll do it. Just to get the things we think we don't have. Okay, so let's say that, you give up your arm or your leg just to get that iPhone 7, just to have it in your hands. Let's say that you get it, and now you have it all now. You have the bells and whistles. The question is, now what are you going to do with it? I need some interaction here. What would you do with this iPhone 7? You're going to do the same exact things you've already been doing. Old phone or new phone, you're still going to message, you're still going to Snapchat, you're going to Instagram, all the same things you've been doing before. Ain't that kind of funny? And guess what? Once the iPhone 8 comes out, the same sad old story is going to happen over and over again. And as silly as this example may seem, this is what we do in our lives, even if it's not phones. We just chase after the wind, wanting and expecting things we don't have, and we ignore the things that we do have. Sometimes our expectation lists, as humble and meek as we think we make them, they end up ruining our lives because they're so unhealthy. I think Joseph's expectation list really disappointed him badly. Joseph thought his dream was about getting respect and recognition, things he thought he deserved. He wanted to be exalted, elevated amongst his brothers, but what happened in reality was that he was thrown out by them, and so he felt like a failure. So far, my message has been focusing on my life and on Joseph's life, and now I'm going to turn the spotlight to you. What expectation list do you know that God is not meeting in your life? What promises are not fitting in the way that they're supposed to fit? Is it the graduate school that you want to get into? The girl or boy that you want to get with? The salary or career you're supposed to be making and building? The list can go on and on, I'm sure. But here's an important point. And this is how fears relate to promises. When our expectations are not met, fear can easily take over. Fear can paralyze us. It can make us stop in our foot tracks like a deer in headlights, and we won't know what to do when the car is coming. That's what fear does. It paralyzes us. And like we said before, there's so many fears out there. The fear of failure, the fear of marrying the wrong person, the fear of not knowing God's will in your life. Whatever fear that you may have, that fear is very real to you. And so our fears take over once our expectations are not met. So I think maybe it's time for us to change our expectation list. Changing our expectation list. I think we all have bad expectation lists. I think that's a common problem across the board. We're not very good at making them. And sometimes I think that we don't realize how bad we're at making expectation lists. Like if there's a statistic that could validate what I'm saying, it would say something like this. 10 times out of 10, what's not good for us, we want. And the very things we think we need are the very things we ignore. What we think is good for us are the very things that we don't need, and the very things that we do need are the very things we don't think we need. I have some friends that I go to school with that really want to lose weight. Like when you ask them about it, like you could see that they have such a fire in their eyes, and they have their 2 a.m. moments where they're staying awake at night and they're just imagining what their life would be like if they got skinnier and more lean. And they know what dietitians and physicians say about losing weight. They know that diet and exercise is clinically proven time and time after again is the best method for weight loss. But for some reason, as soon as an advertisement comes in and promises something different, The very things they need, they ignore. Advertisements dupe us all the time. They can say whatever we want, and we believe it. Magic pills that claim that you don't have to exercise, you don't have to change your diet. All you have to do is just pay us and take the pill. And we fall for it. They want, and we want, what's not good for us. Their expectation list is that weight loss happens by doing nothing but taking a pill. And that's certainly not healthy. That's a poor expectation list. So what I'm trying to say is that we are so bad at creating good expectation lists. I wish I had that on, I made a slide of that. I'm going to say it again. We are so bad at creating good expectation lists. Why are we so bad at it? It's because we're fallen and tainted by sin, and we don't know any better. We're all like children. We don't know how to be mature and create expectations that are healthy and honorable. And that's why we need God, and we need the church. We need each other. We are the church to help us become more mature and accountable Christians. I needed someone to tell me that my expectation list was bad and unhealthy, because from my perspective, I never thought it was. This was my expectation list. I wanted people's respect by the things I accomplished, but that expectation is unhealthy and it's unrealistic. I made my expectation list so centered around me, about what I can do. It was about my gain. It was about my grain selfishly standing upright while others bowed before mine. I was chasing after the wind, chasing expectations that I would never catch. And I wouldn't know that this was a problem had I not confessed it to someone I knew I could trust, someone that was for me. And unless I made that decision to share my fears with those people who love me, with those who I trust and know that they have my best interest at heart, I don't know what would have happened. And as hard as it was to share everything, the trade-off was perfect. And this was the trade-off. The fact that I understood how unhealthy my expectations were was exactly what I needed to hear. And so if I had to go back and do it again and do the whole confessing and showing my vulnerability, I would do it again, because what I needed to hear helped me make sense of my fears. It helped me make sense of God's promises for my life. And so looking back on it now, I see myself, the Josh at 2 a.m. that night, I questioned God's faithfulness and His promises. I questioned if God was working in my life and if He cares that I feel like a failure. Those several hours I was questioning God. But now I look back at it and I look at these past 22 years, these 22 long years of my life, and now I could look and see that during that entire time, God never failed me. God was there with me all throughout 22 years of my life. God was working through my friends and all throughout my life to help me see that there are better things worth expecting. So what exactly was it that changed in the Josh Chacko expectation list? Well, while I was in the process of changing it, I actually came to realize something significant. I realized that I'm never going to earn the respect of people through athleticism, through music, or other things on those lists. Those things were just chasing after the wind. And I don't have to do those things because I already had people's respect. And I'll explain why. I could probably talk for hours and hours explaining how what I wanted for and what I thought I was chasing, I actually had the whole time. I could spend hours talking about that, but here's just a small example that really convinced me that the life that I'm living is not a life of failure like I used to think it was. And sometimes it's the smallest things that happen in life that make you feel respected and valued in ways that you haven't before. So one of my close friends texted me on my birthday not too long ago, and she told me something that caught me off guard and made me realize how wrong I was to think that I was a failure at life. Okay? So along with the birthday wish, she went out of her way to tell me how thankful she was to have me in her life. To be the big brother she never had and challenge her in ways that she's never been challenged before, and it helped her become a more mature and stronger Christian. You know, like, I'm sure, like, all of us, we get text messages like that. Like, people will text us saying, like, oh, I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and so on and so on. So it's not a big deal, but for me, in that instance, when I got it, it was a big deal because of everything that I was going through. I still remember, I was so excited. I couldn't at first believe what I read. The respect that I thought I had to earn through achievement, it was earned through love. It was earned through relationships and building community with those around me. It was by loving my neighbor, by loving my friend who sent me that birthday text. That's how I earned their respect. Now, how much thought was put into that text message when she was sending it to me? I'm not sure. I can't say for sure. But what I do know for sure, and what I know is fact, is how it made me feel. To know that somebody knows who I am, and they respect me because who I am to them, not what I achieved or accomplished. Now, I'm going to ask the musicians to come up on stage. So yes, this revelation was great. It was awesome. But I'm not going to lie to you. I still struggle. I'm not going to pretend to you like I don't struggle with feeling like a failure. I still struggle with it, but now I know how to make better sense of it. And slowly, I'm in this process of changing my expectation list. And I find that as I'm changing my expectation list, life is starting to become more and more enjoyable. I'm starting to find happiness in the things that I used to not find happiness in. And this new outlook of life, I never thought I would say this in my life, that I'm happy with my life. I thought I would only say that after I met everything in the old Josh Chacko expectation list. But I'm coming to accept and find satisfaction in the life that I'm living. It's a life that I never knew I wanted. It's a life that is better than the life that I wanted before. And I know for a fact, just how it happened in my life, it could only be God. It was a God moment. There was no way that I by myself would have known that these are the things that I wanted. And so it's true. God's promises. It's true to me in a way that I've never seen before. The promises of Ephesians 3:20. Can we have that on the screen again? God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above and beyond all that we can ask or imagine in our expectation list. And God wants you to live in His promises. And so, and this is what we want for you as Stonehouse. We want you to be free from the fears inhibiting you. We want you to find freedom in sharing and confessing your struggles to people who love and care about you. We're going to continue our worship through music in a second, but I just want to let you guys know that this can be the space for you. This can be the space for you to find peace with your fears. This can be the place where broken people can learn to love broken people. That's Stonehouse's mission. We can help each other and make sense of our fears. We can share in the promises of God together. So to the person that's struggling and needed to hear this message, let me tell you Romans 8:28. God is working all things for your good, even if it doesn't make sense right now, because He loves you. And He loves all of us. And He's given us each other to help us see that He does love us and He wants a life that's better for us. Better than the life that we thought we wanted. He wants to show it to us. You all can go ahead and stand as we're about to transition to worship. Jesus is coming soon. And so I want to encourage you tonight to ignore your fears for a second. Ignore your fears and ask God to give you the faith to believe. To believe that you can share your fears. To to believe that God's promises are true, to believe that God and people can help you shape healthier expectations for your life. God, move in our hearts this evening as we continue to worship. Help us to realize, God, that there are better things worth expecting than the things we settle for. Let us not settle for cheap wine. Let us go for the things that you have in store for us, oh God. Things that are above and beyond our imagination. We want access to those things, God. Lord, I pray that you would move in our hearts as we go into worship, God. We thank you.
And I need you to soften my heart, to break me apart. I need you to open my eyes, to see that you're shaping my life. And all I am, and I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, God, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. And I need you to soften my heart, to break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark and cleanse every part of me. And all I am, and I surrender. And give me faith to trust what you say, God, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Give me faith, say out. Give me faith to trust what you say, God, that you're good and your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. And I may be weak, your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, but my God, you sing that I'm now. And I may be weak, yeah, your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, but my God, you never will. Say, I may be weak, yeah, your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, oh God, my God, you never will. Say, I may be weak, Your spirit strong in me. My flesh may fail. My God, you never will. I may be weak. Your spirit strong in me. My flesh may fail. My God, you never will. If my heart is overwhelmed and I cannot hear your voice, I hold on to what is true, though I cannot see. And if the storms of life they come and the road ahead gets steep, I will lift these hands in faith. I will believe. I remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. And love came down and rescued me. And love came down and set me free. And I am yours. I am forever yours. And mountain high or valley low, I sing out and remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours. And when my heart is filled with hope and every promise comes my way, when I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet. I will lift these hands in praise. I will believe, and I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. Oh, say love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free, and I am yours. I am forever yours. Oh, you love us so much. We're sinking in your grace, God. Sinking in your love, Lord. That we are yours forever. You have us wrapped in your arms, God. In your arms of love, oh Lord. Said he loves us, and oh how he loves us, and oh how he loves us, and oh how he loves. Sing that one more time. Said he loves us, and oh how he loves us, and oh how he loves us, and oh how he loves. Sing that one more time. Said he loves us, and oh how he loves us, and oh how he loves